Hey there, welcome back to another episode of MVP Business Podcast, where we showcase leaders who live through their mission, vision, and passion to drive growth, profits, and loyalty. I'm your host, Steph Silver, owner of Vine Collective and Four Wings Marketing, empowering leaders, transforming brands. We craft brands from the inside out to help companies soar. Today's guest is Jeffery Brown. Jeffery has produced a number of award-winning narrative features and documentaries in Europe, Africa, and the US. His films have been featured at numerous festivals around the globe, including Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, Full Frame, Rotterdam, and more, and have been released in cinemas internationally, as well as on Netflix, HBO, PBS, ESPN, AMC, and others. This guy's the real deal, and he's been producing and releasing even more this year. So first of all, welcome, Jeffery. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've been working on lately.
Well, I guess since COVID hit, there's been something of a pivot in what I do. I've always been, in addition to working as a producer, I've also worked as kind of a producer rep, meaning representing producers to help them get their films out to the world, as well as a distribution, say, consultant. And so some of the films that I produced that came out that I was a producer on, or one producer of a team. So we came out with a film about the Saxon Pub, or really it's celebrating Austin music. It won the Music Doc Prize at South by Southwest in 2019, and that's called Nothing Stays the Same. So that came out in the summer, as did a film about Bobby Keys, most notably the saxophonist for the Rolling Stones, and that's called Every Night's a Saturday Night. And then there's been a number of others, which we just kind of gotten up on the platform. I guess as an entrepreneur, you have to pivot when things change, and again, part of that pivot was with less production going on, getting films out to the world. So I've been getting out some of my back catalog as well, which includes a film called Vinyl Generation, which is about vinyl music, and really the Generation X in the Czech Republic. And that group that was kind of the last group which grew up under communism, and were adults in 1989 during the Velvet Revolution. And then most recently, I'm part of a film called Cowboys, which is about working cowboys, which won the Audience Award at the Austin Film Festival, and has had a very nice run and resonates hugely in that working cowboys community, as well as elsewhere. And so we came out on November 17th. And I've had a nice run, a very nice reaction, and yeah, some others are coming. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of stuff to be produced and released, and just it sounds like a year and a half of time that's been released. I know a lot of things you work on for longer than that.
Yes.
Let's talk up and start with the question: when did you realize that you were passionate about film?
I just kind of fell into it. I started off writing and had some success writing. This is when so after I went to college in the United States, in Texas. I went to Texas A&M, but we had a program in my house, and I moved. We had a program in my house called Students for Czechoslovakia, and it was in connection with a program at Georgetown in DC. And so we sent students over to teach English. And so it's really when I went there, I mean, the whole indie film thing made sense to me just by being involved in so many independent projects in college. But I maybe my passion was probably greater for music in college than it was film. But it also coincided with just the digital technology taking off, and filmmaking becoming so much less of a mystery through digital technology. And so it just became much more accessible. And so I fell in love with the Czech New Wave, which was a celebrated period in Czech filmmaking in the late 60s and which included films which were recognized in the United States as best foreign film or nominations for best foreign film. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And there was a real film scene there. And I, always have had a passion for art house films. It's still what I prefer to watch, and still, it's kind of my passion, and just got into it more there. But it definitely coincided with, I went to my film school was really going to the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival, which is the big film festival in the Czech Republic. And just a lot of forces came together at the same time. And I thought I would be more of a writer, and was having some success with that, but just realized that it probably fit my personality more to be a producer. And after lots of trial and error and bouncing around, and I realized that it suited my personality more to be a producer. And so that's and the storytelling aspect of it. I worked as a journalist a lot, and was writing about Central and Eastern Europe quite a bit. And that also just a lot of those forces came together. And really more, it's become more documentary filmmaking. I'm a part of fiction films, but it's since I've moved, I lived in the Czech Republic for 20 years. And once I moved back, for lots of reasons, it was already kind of going documentary, in the documentary direction. It's not exclusively that, but it's more weighed that way. And just realized that I had a passion for it, despite all the ups and downs and difficulties of it. It makes me happy, and I've learned to do it as a job, but it's not without difficulties, for sure. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. One of the things I want to take a moment, though, is for those who aren't overly familiar with the film industry, describe what a producer does, what those challenges are, and maybe what it is you love about it. Sometimes it's the challenge that people love.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and it never stops. It's I would say anytime I take my foot off the gas, everything falls apart. So that's probably one thing that is tiring, is that it's nonstop. And I still am ridiculous enough to think, oh, maybe I'll just take it, maybe I'll slow down this week or something. And every time I do, everything falls apart. So it's constant, and it requires, for me, I'm juggling several projects at once. Mm-hmm. And they're at different stages, and it just simply has to be that way to make a living doing it. But remind me what the question was. I forgot.
What does a producer do?
What does a producer do? Yes, a producer is forgetful. See, like that. A producer is. I mean, there's different types of producers, but in general, your job is to work with a director. It's a little bit different on docs. For narrative features, the producer is going to raise money, and in very, very, very broad strokes, it's going to be the manager of the project, in the sense that, and I get involved much more creatively, but on fiction films, you're raising the money, you're scheduling, you're controlling the budget, you're controlling the set, and you're doing the scheduling, and you're seeing the film through. And not only financially, but just getting the film out to the world distribution wise. So you're going through the post-production of editing and all the sound mix and everything like that, and then you're getting it out to the world. And that's why that's why when you see the Oscars, and it's not really the world I'm in or I'm even striving to be in, but in the Oscars, when they announce best foreign film, it's always the producer who stands up there and takes that. What I like about documentary, and the reason I've gone that way, is it's much more collaborative. The lines are less drawn. I'm, as a producer, I'm very involved in the storytelling aspect of it. These are smaller crews. Everyone's doing a little bit of everything. And a lot of times the director on the project is as much of a producer as I am. And I'm, very much involved in the storytelling and sharing ideas, and that collaboration is what I like. And instead of, an indie fiction film where there's 20 to 30 people on set, or big Hollywood films where there's, hundreds, a lot of times our documentary crews are 3 or 4 people,
Hmm.
so, and I like that intimacy, and you feel like you're making much more of an impact. So, but same thing with the producer on docs. It's still your job to, be finding, for me, selecting projects I want to work on. I knowing that I'm gonna have to work on it for a long time. It has to be something that I I care about regardless of everything. Is this a story I want to tell? Because I'm going to be living with it for at least 2 years, quite possibly 5 or more. So do I love the story is really number one. As a producer, I'm looking. Is there an audience for it? No one wants to tell a story that no one wants to see, and is it unique? So those are kind of the things I'm looking at. Is this something I care about enough to work on for, let's say, 5 years? Is there an audience for it, and is it unique? And so that's what that's kind of, I guess, my criteria. And then same thing, seeing the project through, through post production and getting it out to festivals and distribution and out to the world.
I think that's what I do.
A lot of people do that. Yeah.
uh, businesses. So, getting into the film business on any level, whether it's local docs or like you said, there's all the different levels of indie and then Hollywood. There's this feeling, this overall concept that the film business is really difficult to get into. What's your response to that?
A lot of these this is Hollywood talk, and a lot of this is, it's not really the world I'm a part of or trying to be a part of. To make it your living is difficult for everyone, and so it's hard to get into it and make a living doing it. I think that the world's changed dramatically because of, digital technology is not new, but I think it's gone very much the other way, where like I feel like almost everyone's making a film. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think it's hard to get in and stay. There's a lot of
Hmm.
people who dabble.
Hmm.
Um, but I see people who think it looks like, it looks like all fun and games. They see me for the 15 seconds that I'm up on stage at a film festival. Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. it's anything but glamorous. And so for me, I enjoy the problem solving of it. I enjoy the troubleshooting. That's it fits my personality that I like solving problems. So, um, that's why it works for me.
Hmm.
And there's most documentary filmmakers are not getting rich at all. But they're doing something, it's a complete trade-off, and they're doing something that they love, and they're very, very clear about that. But I would say, getting back to your question, it's hard to get in. It's probably harder to stay,
Hmm.
because people will start looking around and they start panicking that they're not getting rich or whatever, and they just need to move on to do whatever it is they think allows them to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about all the different areas of film and TV and that whole world is that basically everyone's an independent contractor going from job to job. So even, I even heard, I don't even know who it was, but it was some big movie actor who said, I may, and this is obviously going in one huge direction, but the concept, I may make $1 million on a film, but I may work on that film for 5 years and I may not have another job for 5 years.
Right.
You never know what's next. You're always building those relationships, knocking on doors, hoping that your personality and your relationships will get you to that next step. And so everyone's a starving artist. Everyone, goes from, peaks and valleys, and has to know that they're in it for a passion for the art or the product or for telling a story. And
Right.
I feel like there's something in your heart and soul that just keeps you moving forward, whether you're the producer, the director, the actor, the whomever it is that's on set. there's something there, some resilience and passion that just pulls you through and keeps you going, knowing that there's always tough times, but then there's always really great times. And just the power of telling the story can really take you from one project to the next.
Yeah, and I think that's, everything you just said applies to freelance, whatever it is. Maybe I think I spend so much of my time like just kind of bringing down the drama, or bringing down oh my God, you must be so in love with this, and yeah, but it's still like day to day. The day to days could not be more down to earth. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here or be a buzzkill, but sure, I guess if I really had to think about it in those terms, yes, I like the storytelling, and yes, that's exciting. But for me, it's just, it's just become a way of life, and I don't think I'm so unique. But for those few moments where you present the film and there is some celebration around it, then yes, for sure. But I think it's like I don't think there's any job that you do, or especially as an entrepreneur or as a freelancer, where you're not having to have those same qualities of passion and drive to keep it going. And I think all you're doing is piecing them together. For me, I've taken certain steps to kind of fill in those blanks where I'm producing my own films, but I'm also, I'm coming on to other films as a producer as well. So I have my own that I'm, taking the steps to, that are in, some level at some point in the process. And then I have others which I'm coming on as a producer as well. So, it's going at, some more strength to what you're saying. Yes, you got to piece it together, but it goes. I think if you talk to someone who is a freelancer in whatever the field is, they would have a very similar story.
Mm-hmm. So you've had quite a bit of success in, first of all, staying active in in your field, and then also getting picked up and on all these different channels and outlets and festivals, and then getting the awards. What do you think that you attribute that to?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it's hard work. A lot of it's luck. A lot of it's choosing topics that I just kind of know instinctually what will interest me. A lot of it's music. A lot of it's been just being fortunate. Some of the higher profile films have been the ones that have been able to go to these festivals and get the distribution, and and all the films get released, but like I said, a lot of it's music oriented, and that's kind of become, I guess my specialty, but it's not the only thing going on. But some of them are tiny. Right now we're doing a GoFundMe for a film on Texas dance halls, and that is a plug. And we're trying to get that one, and that's a passion project, and I like that film as much as I like all the other ones, and we will be able to. And it's also something that I've gotten better at is getting all the films out to the world on the platforms, and have created those relationships. But that's come over time, and I think that's like anything you do. There's still a lot of stuff I don't. Other people do better than I do, but and you recognize that and you kind of delegate. But one thing that I'm probably know something about is I spent a lot of time getting to know festival programmers. I spent a lot of time getting to know sales reps, and I've spent a lot of time getting to know distributors, and I maintain those relationships. Whereas a lot of producers, are good, have only had the time, they're younger or whatever, have only had the time to focus on their craft. And then after the film's done, they don't really know what to do with it. And that's not a criticism. It's just, it's very collaborative, and different people are good at different things. So
that's a really good point. I think that most people do focus on their career and their craft and their personal skill, when the relationships could be 50% or more of the outcome of success.
Right. And getting back to your previous question, it's so hard to get into. It's so hard to get into the film industry. Some form of that is, I work with a lot of times. I work with the same people over and over, but I've kind of realized. I was listening recently to. I was a huge Smiths fan. I love Johnny Marr, who's the guitarist for the Smiths, and I was watching an interview with him recently, and he said he realized at some point he was a collaborator. He was a collaborator, and that's kind of I think we pick and choose, or we steal from other people, and I was realized that that's kind of what I am. I work with a lot of different people, and I think more than anything I'm a collaborator. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of films going on, and each of them have different film teams, and some of them are new, but a lot of the people I continue to work with over and over. And Austin's much more of a crew town. It's not really a film industry town so much. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but it is more of a crew town. There's not distributors and there's not salespeople necessarily in this town. It's more a large crew town, and so people are working. They're not exclusive to one group. It's the nature of the business here. Is people are going back and forth. But a lot of these within these crews, a lot of these people are working together and call each other. And so once you're kind of in with a team and you do a good job, then you can stay on. And same with me. Teams are much smaller. It's much more intimate. But I work with the same post-production people for color or for sound or, but always shaking it up too. It goes both ways.
Tell me about, so you've had all this, I say all this great success, which I know you're pretty humble, so I appreciate that, but you have had a lot of success and you've built a wonderful career. Tell me about one of your low points in your career, what that was like and how you climbed out of it.
One low point? Oh my God.
Go for it. Let us fill us in.
One a week. I guess for me, moving back to the United States was difficult, and I potentially got a decent amount of attention just because I'd lived abroad and had this unique, let's say relatively unique experience or different experience, but it wasn't really translating to jobs or, it still comes back to someone. I'm in the position of having to, get projects going. I'm probably good at getting projects going and good at completing them. Probably even better at completing them, which, there's much better producers, I would say, than I am, but those talents are necessary regardless of what you're doing, is getting something going, which is very, very difficult. And then getting something completed, which is also very difficult. You'll find a lot of half-made films or films that remain nearly completed for a long time. And I don't know if that's a knack or what. It probably is. Whereas there's far better producers than me in terms of just nuts and bolts of scheduling, scheduling and budgeting and all these things. But again, if I had to pick one or the other, I'd probably stay where I am because that's what I know. And it's a certain instinct of how to do those things, I guess. And it's not always, there's some tried and true roads, I guess, but each one's different. So I guess that's kind of just what I bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. How do you handle really big roadblocks and bumps?
You wanted me to talk about a low point? Yeah, a low point is when I came back to the States and was having to start over. So I don't suggest people making big moves in their lives in their 40s, or for me, it was my early 40s. And I was like, oh my God. So I was taking on being back in the US and taking on, luckily I was in Austin and it was a friendly film community. And so that helped, but it wasn't automatic and it wasn't overnight. And I was very close to having to, change speeds and do something different. So that I would call that a low point in me because my career in the Czech Republic was really hitting stride, and that's when I moved back to the US.
What brought you back?
Well, I had to kind of make some decisions whether I wanted to stay in the Czech Republic the rest of my life. which sounds very, very dramatic, but it started to feel that way. And I met a woman, got married, which was great, and it's still great, and there's no regrets. But it's I was a good expat. I enjoyed living as a foreigner, but I think everyone's had to you got to make big decisions in your life, and that was a big decision to come back. So that was difficult. That was a low point. But I don't want to do that again. And so it was a low point professionally, not personally. It was a high point, but it was hard to get going again. So
how did you get from that intro level of, I don't have the relationships, I don't have the cred that I had back what you considered home now. Yeah. How did you get from there, from that low point, and push yourself and continue to push yourself until you kind of are where you are now?
Just got busy, and that was the hard point, was trying to, I was so used to having so much going on and just had to start over. But I just kind of in general have lots of projects going. And everyone does things differently. It's a little bit different for a producer, that you can have several projects going, where, a director is generally, going from one project to the next to the next. And so it just took a while to start, getting busy. And I was seeing through some of the projects, and I had projects there still, but I got the busier you get, then the more contacts you make. And I just had to, it takes a while, and I think you're more patient when you're 20 or 25 than you are when you're in your 40s. You're like, oh my God. And expectations are different and all of that. But, it's never, ever not, it's never, I don't want to call it a struggle, because that sounds like it's not, it's just terrible, but it's a constant challenge. And as I suggested before, taking your foot off the gas is when things start to fall apart.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Is it that your emotions or your productivity, or what is it that you feel falls apart when you take your foot off the gas?
Well, it just I need to have several projects going at the same time, and and all of them need some love, at certain points, and so I think it's just that there's never. I don't think that's unique to me. I think that any freelancer or any entrepreneur will tell you that you have to be on the go, and you have to it's some version of honing your craft, but it's maintenance of what you're doing. Is you got to keep rolling and keep things going, and that's why it's not for everybody. I don't think one's better than another. I think it suits, I think most entrepreneurs have some form of high energy, and stamina, and that's needed. For me, going into an office I go to my own office now, but going into an office was always difficult, and working for other people was, I enjoy being a collaborator on independent projects, but going into an office has always been a challenge. And I think that's the same for lots of entrepreneurs, or, is that they need to have their own gig going. As small as they might be, it's still theirs, And so I kind of gets back to this thing of collaboration, which I truly enjoy. But yeah, I think you got to take it out of film, and anything like that. The people I know who are entrepreneurs, they're on the go all the time. And again, some people just work better going to an office and being employees. And I don't think one's better than another again.
No, it's a personality thing. Yeah, I agree that an entrepreneur needs to be driven and needs to have a certain level of always wanting something new, always wanting wondering what's next, and willingness to, like Melinda Garvey from Austin Woman, she said, business is such as life, but especially business and being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster, and you have, downs and ups, and sometimes you have really big downs, and as you're going down, you're hoping like hell this is the beginning of the upward swing for the big ride. But then the higher that that coaster is going, there's gonna be a big drop somewhere.
Yes. And they're all terrible, and they happen on a daily basis. They happen, sometimes 3 times in a day, So I think you're trying to build as much as much protection in, so that you're not reaching this point of desperation, but if something big that you try very hard to never count on anything until it's already been done, a week ago. But I think it's also human nature that we have expectations, and we have feelings, and you get excited about something. And I think part of it's just a 24/7 managing of expectations, not only my own, but other people. And in trying to manage expectations without being negative or just a total bummer, but I try very hard with the people I'm working with to I walk that line, and I don't want to, I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't excited about it. But especially in film, people tend to go wacko, we're going to get famous, or we're going to get rich. And some of that's not so prevalent with other industries. And so just try to keep everybody super grounded.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we're going to work. We're going to do a project. We're going to do it as well as we can. And we're going to hope that a lot of people want to watch it.
Yeah. And that's just kind of it, it's like so many initiatives and so many projects that, you give it your best shot.
Mm-hmm. Over and over again. What is the most stressful thing that you've experienced on set, whether it's on set or in, in planning? I imagine you might have, you plan something, and then, one of your income streams falls through, or you're expecting, to film outside, and, and then there's a tornado, or, there's all sorts of things that are constantly coming up in all sorts of businesses, but especially in film. I would imagine there's so many balls to juggle.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I don't do fiction film so much, because each day there's so many moving parts, and each day is so, you deal with that less in documentaries, and that's part of what I like, is that you got to get your day, but there's less pressure with this, and that's, part of, if you're shooting a fiction film, and it's a 25-day shoot or what, each day, if you miss a day, then the stress is much higher. And that's why you always hear about these blowouts. With documentaries, it's easier going, there's less money involved, egos are much smaller. You bring a gigantic ego to a documentary film, you're kind of a buffoon. They don't really fit together, and I don't really care to be around all that. So that pressure is less. It's again, where a fiction film, you have, there's, actors have certain days, locations have certain days. With docs, you have a lot more freedom to revisit things. Mm-hmm. But there is a level of that. What's gone wrong? I don't know. There was a time when I lived in the Czech Republic, and I kind of became the guy you called to go shoot in dangerous places. So when I shot a film about Somali pirates.
That's right.
We were in a, I was in a Somali ghetto in Nairobi for 21 days straight. That was sometimes nerve-wracking. Some of the African shoots have always, I loved going to Africa. I still think if I was a single man, I would probably live in Africa, or spend more time there. I still think it's kind of I don't know, maybe the truest rendering of life for me. I like it. It's just my life's changed, and I have less of a desire to go there, but I was into it. But those were always, interesting shoots. That those had more danger attached to them, driving across the Kenyan desert. We, had 2 military guys, we had 2 soldiers with MK-47s in the back seat, the whole time. That was always very funky. We broke down several times. There's always, with shoots abroad, there's always that. There's less of that here. There's less like harrowing experiences, but we one very early film we did was about the NATO bombing of Kosovo, and we were going through places that were dangerous, and we were getting stopped and thrown in jail and handcuffed and stuff like that. But I just kind of moved on from that. But there was a time where I was getting the call to go to dangerous places. So I keep relatively speaking,
South and Hub's pretty chill, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, of course there are a zillion problems, but relatively speaking, what do you do? I mean, these are privilege problems.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good point too. Like you go from, projects where you're fearing for your life or your crew's safety in some way, shape, or form to like, fine, we gotta wait till tomorrow, or we didn't get X interview, but we can figure it out.
So keeping those things in perspective is, it's all relative.
Absolutely. So you have, as a producer, you're in the programming seat of figuring out, like you said, the funding, managing funding, schedules, carrying and pulling the project to the end. And that's kind of the business end of filmmaking. Obviously, you love to be a part of the storyline and collaborating and being a part of the artistry of it as well. We talked a little bit when we first spoke about you really digging and getting into helping other people in the filmmaking industry think of their craft as more of a business.
Yeah, so I did a documentary masterclass when I lived in the Czech Republic and in Europe, and then I did it again here. I worked with a group which did consultation and advising of filmmakers. And that kind of gets back to this whole idea that with digital filmmaking, lots of people are making films, or lots of, people are coming out of film school and they're honing their craft, and they're good crafts people. They're good filmmakers, women and men. So it kind of it takes on a lot of different roles, but I was already kind of getting a lot of phone calls about that, and I worked with a group that, as I said, that focused on that. And then once that ran its course, I, in so many words, took that part of the business, agreed upon, and do some level of, let's say, consultation or advising. And I taught it when I lived in the Czech Republic. I taught some at the film schools there, and was guest lecturing often, and still do a level of that. But found that rewarding. Found that there was position there. There was kind of a gap in the market of which suited me. It has its own perils, and it's not easy. I still like working with established filmmakers as my partners, but it's something that has suited me well, and it's something I've been focusing on more. I do it as a job, but it's also I would be lying if it's not rewarding. It is rewarding, and it's kind of exciting to it kind of takes you back to some of those early successes where things work out for the first time, and there's so you're kind of, which I guess is part of the reason why people teach, I guess, is sharing some knowledge. But it's much more at a level of not like, well, I kind of come on the team, so the difference is not that great compared to the projects that I'm producing myself, but yes, been doing that, and I've done a number of documentary master classes, are really just around Texas, and it's kind of an A to Z. It's a one-day event. It's kind of an A to Z deal, and something I'm potentially trying to turn into more of like an online course, but that I haven't really found the time to do that yet. So.
Stay busy with your other work.
Yeah.
What is it that you find yourself when you're talking to those young filmmakers saying over and over, or advice that maybe not advice, but just words that and directions that you find yourself saying more than once?
Again, well, probably managing expectations. and just keeping, staying conservative and doing things. And again, it feels ridiculous because to suggest like you have all these answers. I mean, guy, it couldn't be more down to earth. Like based on X, Y, and Z, this is why we should do this. So it's all based on very rational thinking and very concrete examples. I think the masterclass is very much based. It's not that it's unintellectual. It's just very much based on experiences I've had. But it couldn't be more, let's say, modest in the sense of like this whole idea of like, I got all the answers couldn't be further from the truth. It's very much like, these are the things that I've experienced and this is what I would do. And this is kind of what the industry says, or this is what I'm seeing, or this is what, other people are doing. And this is how, these are ways that you can raise money for your project based on these other projects I've done, or this is what I've done when I've gotten to this point in the film. I guess it's rewarding for me to reflect on those experiences and be able to apply it to other people's projects. So I would like to think that it brings value, and helps get these films finished. An incomplete film, and there's tons of them sitting around on shelves. That's not good for anyone. And so figuring out a way, and a lot of times it takes some level of assertiveness or aggressiveness or activity that you run out of. A lot of times it's bringing kind of a fresh air, bringing a breath of fresh air to the projects.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. These projects, like you said, can last 1 to 5 years. And you have this, great level of excitement at the beginning, oh yeah, I worked with that guy and we're working again. And we're excited about telling this story and we're getting all these people and we're going to talk to whomever, whether it's a star or somebody you respect or, cool cowboys or whatever it is. And you have this really high level of energy because they probably just rested from a previous project and excitement. And then what's your way of managing those expectations, but also the energy to pull it over the finish line?
I think, like I said, I think it's similar with so many other projects. I don't think it's unique to just filmmaking, but I run out of gas on my own projects. A lot of the projects I'm coming on are, people have run out of gas, or they've just hit a rut, and they need someone to play tugboat, or someone just to get them out of it, whatever that problem is. And it doesn't mean that they're not good at what they're doing. It's just they've run out of gas, or they've run out energy or resources or money or whatever it is. It's usually a combination of all of those. So I think you just a lot of it's just keeping the faith, and I mean that just in the most general terms, but there's a lot of like every project in life, there's a lot of hope and faith that has to go into it that you can pull through. And hopefully you're surrounding yourself with people. I just don't want to hang around with negative, there's a lot of positive energy, and it's not corny positive energy, but we don't, it doesn't require cheerleaders, but it requires people who don't have that. Do you remember that cartoon, the guy on the princess cartoon, the guy who says, "We'll never make it"? Yeah. I forgot what his name is, but those guys aren't helping things.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of, if I get the sense that it's a bunch of buzzkills, then, or just people who are like that negative. And again, it doesn't have to be this ridiculous over the top positivity, but if you're not your own cheerleader on these things, then it's going to be hard to make it work.
Well, and like you said, it is all about relationships. So if you're not able to pull yourself through and you need other people to cheerlead you through, then whether you have talent or not, you may not be asked to come on the next journey.
Sure. Yeah. And, that's why, I don't think that you should just be, it might be something you need to have in your head, but I just think, you shouldn't be doing a project in order just to make the next one work. I think that's also a problem a lot of times with films, is that people are like, well, what are we gonna do in the next one? Is like, you got to get, you got to finish the first one. And I was guilty of that. I've been guilty of that in the past as well. But, it, it, it almost, I don't know if there's ever a time where it doesn't take all of your energies to get the project done that you're on. And you better just focus on getting that one done and dealing with tomorrow,
Mhm. That's great advice. You talked about this a lot earlier. You have a strong passion for music, and you've leaned into that with your film career. Tell me
Right.
how that got started and when. I mean, partially you moved to Austin, Texas, which is super helpful.
Yeah. And, yeah, I don't know. I just grew up with it. I have older brothers and an older sister, and music was big in our house. We were a Rolling Stones house. And so I was just into that growing up. And then when I was in college, I was part of a team that got something called Coffee House going again. And that was like for one act plays and acoustic guitarists and anything you could put on a small stage like a coffee house. And then was the concert coordinator at A&M as well. And so learned that side of the business of music. So it wasn't just like, oh, I love music. I mean, tons of people love music and know tons more about it than I do. But I was involved in the business side of bringing in concerts and concert writers and contracts and all of that. And so that probably was some background to getting involved as a producer. There's similar
Mhm.
skill sets, let's say, or it's a similar experience. But when I lived in the Czech Republic, I was part of a team that did a music film festival. And so I think my first music film was about Bohemian bagpipes. And there's a big bagpipe festival in the Czech Republic, and it's every other year. And I was going, and initially it was just to go drink beer and run around, and it's a really loud, chaotic festival. And then we were like, we should shoot this, and that was kind of the idea. Really, was just to run around and with cameras and drink beer and shoot some stuff. And then we realized there was actually a story
Mhm.
behind the festival, and it was a good story. And then there was a tradition in southern Bohemia, south of Prague, and so that was kind of the first one, and that coincided with this music film festival, which was an exciting time. And there were films from all over the world, and filmmakers came out, and that just kind of one thing led to another. We did a film about punk music in Africa, which was well received, and just kind of kept going, really. Like I said, right now I'm finishing a film on about the classic rock radio station in Houston.
Mhm.
And again, that has its own set. Each one of them, the storylines become the same in a way. Whether you're talking, it's about people coming together for certain scenes, and it doesn't matter if it's, in Austin, if it's, let's say an Americana or a country scene where, rednecks and hippies came together and both realized they like drinking whiskey and smoking weed. There's that kind of germation there that's similar, whether it be, the punk scenes in New York or, jazz scenes in New Orleans or whatever it is. There are some similar similarities to all of these things, whether
Mhm.
it's the heavy metal scene in San Francisco or whatever it is. And so I think I have a sense of that, which I can apply to different, music films. So there's some commonality, but each one's different. So hope
That's
that
really
answered your question.
That's it. Is there a project that is stands out as one of your favorites?
Oh God, man, so many of them.
Maybe
I
that
don't
you
know.
love the most.
People ask that all the time. I don't know. I kind of like. I think the best thing that one of the things about is it's always good to try to make good films, because if you make one that's not good, then then you screen it and people are like, you got to hear. Of course, 25 people tell you if 25 people tell you it's great and one person tells you it's bad, the one you always focus on is the one that who's critical of it. So is there? I mean, I like parts of all of them. I'm usually kind of into the ones I'm working on now. But there's so little time. I just never ever sit back and go, oh my God, that was so great. It just almost never happens, and I almost never watch films I'm a part of. When I screen them, I walk out and I usually go have a beer, and come back for the Q&A, but I never sit around and watch the films I'm a part of. And when I do, I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad, was it? But it's never, I never watch my own films after they're done, or almost never, even when we screen them. But again, when I do come back from having a beer and I just catch the end of it, I'm like, oh yeah, that wasn't so bad. That looks all right, didn't it? Huh. All right, cool.
That's awesome. I've heard of actors who are the same way. Like they can't stand to. Everybody thinks that actors are so egotistical, and I think some are. Somehow you have to have enough ego to feel like you can be a front man or woman, but a lot of them just love the craft, and they really hate to see themselves on the big screen. And so I find that really interesting as well. That I've heard a lot of people say that their favorite project is the one that they're currently working on.
Kinda, yeah.
That's what
you're so invested in it. I mean, again, and it's so different with a Hollywood, feature film. Docs are more, they're just so long, and you get so, with those kind of films, you're like in and out. With these, I mean, it's endless.
You're living it for
living it. You are living it. If you're not, it's almost impossible not to live it. And I'm not complaining. It's just kind of how it is.
Well, and the other thing about documentaries is, people watch documentaries to learn about something. It's not, I mean, there's definitely, especially now, I think documentaries have come a long way in the beauty of the storytelling, and the cinematography of documentaries have really kind of come a long way in the last decade or so. But most people don't watch documentaries over and over and over again for the beauty of it. Like you said, they're there to learn something, to educate, or to get into a particular story. And so when you're on set and you're in it for 2 or 5 years or however long, the story, it inside and out, the people.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're constantly learning. I mean, it's an extension of I mean, what I do on a daily basis is learn things, I would say, and so that keeps you going. I think it's a great time period now with all the changes socially and politically. I'm all for new voices. It's great that there are so many women, female filmmakers. There's always been tons of great female filmmakers, and again, I don't want to go too political, but there's tons of great new voices and people, filmmakers of color. It's a great shift, not only just in our day-to-day life, but this is my opinion, but just in filmmaking, it's a great shift that we have all these new voices. I mean, I've been working with filmmakers of color and women, female directors for ages and ages. So it's not that big of a shift for me, but I see the larger social significance of it, and I'm not picking and choosing who I'm working with based on those things. I'm picking and choosing who I'm working with, who I want to work with. But I see the bigger statement is, these things need to move. I'm not living my life in real mainstream terms, I guess. And the more that these can just become mainstream issues, the better for all of us. So I think it ceases to be exciting what's going to happen moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the day we're all looking forward to, when it's not an issue. It's not something anyone talks about because it's so commonplace.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at our Saxon Pub film, of the main team, it was half and half, half women, half men. So whoop-de-doo, I mean, I sometimes don't even like to break it down that way, but it is, we got on that topic, or I guided us to that topic. So great,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, the doors have been opened. And so that shift is naturally happening. Whether it's the way that we talk to our children, or what children are growing up with, the doors have been open. And I think that in and of itself creates a shift and a change.
Without a doubt. I mean, I live with 3 women, my wife and 2 girls. And so, it is important to, the only message we have going is everything's possible, because it is, but I know, that hasn't always been the case. And so, but, it's almost like, of course, everything's possible. What in the world are you talking about? How could it not be? And
Yeah.
that's the message for me to our girls is that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I find that really interesting, whether it is, gender or race or, sexuality or, other areas of uniqueness. It's so fun to watch young people and they're just like, of course, why was that ever an issue?
Right. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. And these are good changes.
Absolutely. So what advice would you have to anyone out there who is questioning starting out and taking a leap into a new venture that they're passionate about, whether it's film? And I like that you're a producer because you're showing, all the different areas of film that have to be covered. Some people think about film as, what they see, which is the people in the film, but there's so many, especially from a documentary. It's all crew, and you're interviewing the stars or the people who have lived the lives or had the experience and that you're showcasing. So there's cameramen, there's grips, there's producers, there's directors, and everybody knows about the director, everybody knows about the actor. It's the same thing with businesses. You look up to, the entrepreneur, but there's so many different levels of what I think is stardom that really, like you said, the tugboat that pulls the ship into dock and, follows the path. So
there's a question, what's my advice?
What's advice?
Oh,
what are you saying?
I mean, I don't know, for film, I think there's, God, it's do something else. I'm just kidding. It's a certain personality type. I mean, I wouldn't suggest to anyone to do what I do. I mean, it's specifically what I do is I wouldn't suggest anyone to do that. But getting involved, I would say if you want to get involved, having more of a craft, being a shooter or being an editor, or having some type of craft or skill within film is always a great thing. Because I don't shoot, I have to bring on shooters. I don't edit, I have to bring on editors. More and more people know how to edit. So I'm a little bit, I don't want to say old fashioned, but more and more people can be like a one man or a one woman band. They do everything. But what I do see, do see mistakes all the time of people taking that too far. Like I hire DPs who are very experienced, cinematographers who are very experienced, because a lot of stuff I see, it looks like someone, a one-man band shot it, But back to your question, I would say try to get some skill level. And my other thing is, like, if you're getting involved with this, a lot of people, especially with fiction films, are very financially well off, but I think it's hard to do. For me, my advice would be do something you love, which sounds just so, clunky, but it's true. If you have to go do something every day you can't stand, I mean, you see those people who are, it makes them miserable. So again, I know that's just kind of vanilla advice, but I wish I had something a lot more, hot shot to say. But if you're doing something you like, nothing is going to be without issues. Nothing is going to be without struggles. But at least if you're doing something you believe in, and at least for me, mine changes all the time, or each one's different. Each project's different, and so I do get some spice of life with that, which I like, and there's when you're storytelling, there's different stops along the road where there are some moments of revelation that feel good, and I think we all want some revelation in our life. Otherwise it's all the same. So I think that revelation and that sense of accomplishment continues with at different parts in different parts different stops along the road for each different project. And so that keeps some sense of novelty, with what I do. So, pick something you like to do and do it, and that sounds so, sounds so lame, but I think it's true.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely. I think everything that you do, whether any business you get into, and you said it all, which is, do something you love, do something you like. There are challenges and pitfalls to everything. There's going to be down days. There's going to be days where you doubt yourself. But if you love it, you'll be pulled to do it again.
Yeah. And I would, with what I do, I mean, it's always, I would choose something that was a little bit less stressful. Is what I would do.
But you're an entrepreneur. You don't want to be, but you are.
Right.
I would add to that, going back to the relationships, especially in that business. I had an acting coach once who said that he realized really early on, this is Larry Hovis, and he said he realized really early on that it didn't matter sometimes the level of your talent, that he would see that there were people that were getting hired over and over again, and they weren't necessarily the absolute best, and this is in acting, but they're not necessarily the absolute best actor. So he watched them and he realized they're always on time. They're always there when they're asked to be there, and they always have a good attitude. They're always prepared.
Yeah.
You can continue to hone your craft. You can continue to get better and better. But if you always show up on time, prepared, and with a good attitude, then you can grow from there. And especially when it's a relationship driven, anything that's entrepreneurial or, contract based. And even if you're showing up to an office on a daily basis, if you do those things, you'll probably do fine.
Yeah. I mean, those intangibles, especially with what I do. I mean, I'm rarely working with people I don't like hanging out with. That's when most of the time, if at all possible, I'm working with people I can go have a drink with or go to dinner with. It's a little bit different on docs. Docs are like that, where that's where you always have the big blowouts that people want to hear about. I'm no fun because I don't have big blowouts generally, and people want you to show up and be, Mr. Cool. And, they want to hear that there was this giant blow. It's not really my world. That's more of a Hollywood world where the stakes are really high and the money's really high and all of that. And the attitudes are, the egos are gigantic. And it's not my world. I don't really want it to be. So.
That's good. Well, I think that's why you're still in the business.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Anything else that you want to share with us today? You've had so much. Thank you. Awesome.
No, we keep, you keep an eye out for some of the films. It's always fun for people to watch them. I always forget to do that.
Really soon. And what can we look for right now?
You can look for lots of films are on the platforms, but this year, as I mentioned, the Nothing Stays the Same's on all Amazon and all the big platforms. Every Night's a Saturday Night. It's on Amazon and all the big platforms. Vinyl Generations on Amazon and all the big platforms. I'm not that in love with Amazon. It just happens to be where they all, they're elsewhere as well. The Cowboys film is on Amazon and iTunes and Google Play and Vimeo. And then the Dance Hall Days film, we have our GoFundMe going on right now. And then the Runaway Radio film on the Houston Classic Rock is we're going to be getting that finished in the new year. So and there's other good ones coming.
Always.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jeffery. This has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed every bit of it.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Hey, so what did you think of MVP Business? If you liked it, please subscribe and tell all your friends. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you didn't like it, don't just leave. Let me know what I can do to improve, who you'd like to hear from, and what you'd like to learn. The mission of MVP Business is to share the strengths and struggles of leaders who have successfully grown their businesses while staying true to their mission and vision so that other entrepreneurs can follow, knowing that the path isn't easy, but the journey's worth it. If you believe in this mission, please help by living it and sharing it. In the meantime, enjoy the day and live with passion.